Hi everybody, it's Mish here, and today we are going to be doing another card in my playlist. So the card we're going to make today is a I don't know what it's called, but I call it a center panel swing card. So it's hard to see, but that center panel swings, okay? And I think it's a fun little card. It doesn't really take a lot of time. It's been around for a long time. I remember making this years ago, and it's one of my go-tos, just because it is a little bit different. We're going to start and make this card today. I'll just lay it down there. So what we're going to do is get a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11, and this is pretty good cardstock. I find Michael's cardstock right now is just not good for the card bases. They just don't stand up. This is a Stampin' Up paper, but you wouldn't have to use Stampin' Up. You could use whatever paper that you had that will allow the card to stand up nicely without buckling or bending. We're going to cut that 8.5 by 11 in half so that we have a card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5, and then we'll just fold it in half. If you have a scoreboard, you can do that on a scoreboard, and then we're going to do a series of cuts. So I'm just going to get out my trimmer. Okay, so we're going to do 2 cuts on each end. And basically, it's going to go, if I can get my hand underneath it, it's going to go from the center line out to the edge, okay? And each side is one, and I got it here, is you're going to cut on the 5.5 side. From the center line, you're going to cut 1 1/4, okay? So you would just take this and you'd put it at 1 1/4, and then bring your blade down. And sometimes I do it just below there because I can always trim that with my scissors if I need to. And then again, turn your paper over, go over to the 1 1/4, come down to basically the midline, and you're going to do a cut. Okay, so that's going to give you your side panels. So then we want to just take a little bit off the end of the center panel. So we can just lay our card back, get it so that it's even, and we're only going to take off about 1/4 of an inch, just a wee little bit. And sometimes when it's a small amount that I'm cutting off, I start in the center, I go up, and then I come back down, and that often gives me a cleaner cut. All right, so that's basically your card base. How easy is that? So we'll just get rid of this cutting board. And then the other bits and pieces that you are going to need for this is, and this piece that I cut off, in this instance, I'm using that as my sentiment. Okay, so I saved that little piece. But for your side mats, okay, you're going to need 2 side mats. However, you don't need double-sided, just single-sided paper, something that you like, that's going to coordinate with your center panel. Okay, so your 2 side mats, they are 1 inch by 4. Okay, so your side panels are 1 inch by 4. Okay, and the center panel is 2 3/4 by 3 5/8. And we're just going to go ahead, I'm just going to tack mine down with some tape runner. You can use some glue here. One thing to be aware of is that PVA glue is a water-based glue. So if you use a lot on paper, it may warp your page. But if you use it, just enough to get your piece of paper tacked down, it should be fine. Alternatively, to glue, again, there's the tape runner or the Fabri-Tac or 3-in-1. This is a silicone-based glue, so it doesn't add water to the paper, so it creates a lot less warping or bending of your paper. Sometimes what I do before I go to tack something down is I have a look and see what kind of border that I have. And then that sometimes gives me an idea of how I'm going to, how much border around this piece of paper that I'm going to have. If you're doing a piece of paper that is directional, so it needs to go in one direction, just make sure before you tack it down that it is going in the right direction. These ones here, it doesn't matter. And I picked kind of floral on the outside and then more of a, non-patterned, subtle paper for the middle, so that, it's not competing. As well, the image that I chose, which is one of the Stampin' Up! Stamps that I had, I basically just stamped the image. I colored it with alcohol markers. You can use whatever. You can stamp an image, whatever that you have. But that's what I had. But for the next step, we're going to put a center, I call it a bottom bar here. And we want your swing panel to be on the inside. So what I do is I just turn it around, flip it around, and then with this one here, as you can see in the demonstration, it's not exactly to the bottom, so it looks like there's a couple little legs there. And you only want to tack it on the ends. For this, I am going to use a little bit of just glue. This helps me. When you use a bit of glue, you have a little bit more time and wiggle room to try to get it straight and place it. So I'm gonna put it about there. And I think that's, I've lined my feet up on my cutting board, on my glass mat. I've lined the feet up, and then I can tell if that's a little bit straight. So that looks pretty good. So that's your bottom bar. And then for the decoration, I cut out some leaves. So we'll put some leaves on there. And the set that I used was called Flowers of Home. Again, I think it's a retired set, but there's a lot of stamp sets that you can get with floral designs. I really liked this little, this one here, that die cut, and it makes it a quite delicate little cut. To adhere this down, so I cut it beforehand, and I've just put it in this little plastic that I had. So you can just use something like a glue pen. I use this a lot in my crafting. But for this instance, I was actually doing a card party. I do occasionally do card making party, so I had made up some kits. So for this instance, I just used some double-sided tape to cut that out so that you'd have the adhesive on the backside that I could peel off. They could peel off at class, and I didn't have to worry about having all kinds of these. So you can do that with either some adhesive sheets like the Sizzix, or this is just a one I got off Amazon, I think. Or if you had double-sided tape that's wide enough for your die cut, you can use that too. And what basically that you do is you cut off a piece of paper, roughly what you need, and then you take your double-sided tape, you adhere it to the back of that paper, and then you cut out your image on the other side. And then when your image cuts out, it's on your double-sided adhesive. Okay, so I had done that beforehand. So with this one here, it's quite easy to peel off. So I'm going to lay that down. I'm going to make sure that my flower bit is roughly centered and that I have even amounts, and I don't want it to go off the bottom bar, so I don't want it to be up off it or below it. So we'll just get that down. And then with this here, I'm going to adhere this with some dimensionals. So dimensionals is, are just foam tape that's been cut into different shapes. If you have a roll of foam tape, then you can just cut your own shapes. Before I lay that down, though, I do want to add just a little bit of silver thread. I don't know if you can see that. It's just very fine, some very fine thread. And to do that, I should have done it before I put that dimensional on. I will just put a piece of runner tape down the middle. I can get that running. And put a little piece of runner tape there. And then I just make like a little bit of a figure 8. So I adhere one end, and it doesn't have to go out too awful far, but just stick it out some on one side, and then stick it out the other side, kind of in a figure 8. If you had a little bit extra, then you could just wind that around until you've put down all your strands, and then you can put your dimensional on, and that kind of helps to hold it in place as well, so that when you put it down, you just get a little bit of a texture, I guess, a little bit of bling bling. So, but before I set that down, I'm just gonna figure out where I want these leaves. So if this is gonna go there, then I think I'm happy kind of with that orientation. And then I am just going to use my little glue pen, get it going here. There we go. Which is a great little pen for tacking down fine little things like this. You don't need an awful lot. I just go up and down a few dots on the wing, on the wings, on the leaves, the base, going up the side there, and so then I just tack that down. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the same. And I could have cut these out with the double-sided adhesives too. I'm not really sure why I didn't, because this is kind of fiddly as well. And you could use just, you know, if you had your glue decanted into a needle nose or a fine tip applicator, and you could do that as well. Okay, so I think that's good. I just need to find my tip there. So we'll get that down. And oh, but we need to leave a little bit of room. Actually, let's see about my Elmer's glue. So I don't want to. I put it down and then I moved it, so a lot of the little bits of glue. The good thing about Elmer's glue is that when it dries clear and matte, so there's not like a shine to it. But I did have a sentiment here that I had already cut out, and I want that to go just at the very bottom there. So I'll put my leaves, I guess, roughly there, and then I'm just going to tack that sentiment on. You wouldn't have to have a tiny sentiment like this one, because this one is kind of small. You can handwrite it on a piece of paper, or you could put your sentiment at the bottom or off to the side, or you know, you can decorate it how you like. I basically just want it to give you you know, an idea of the card base, and then, you know, your decoration, make it your own. And it doesn't obviously have to be a birthday card. It could be, you can do this with Christmas paper, and put a poinsettia in the middle, or like a log cabin. So yeah. Okay, so we're pretty much getting to the end here. I just wanted to add a couple little gems, and with these, I find them hard to get off the page with just my fingers. So we can just put them wherever you like, really. I think that would look nice there. And these are just, I think I picked these up actually at the dollar store. I think maybe I'll put one in the center of that. I should make that look cute. Okay, so I've also done the envelope, and this was the exact same one that I think I used in one of the tutorials prior to this, because I just took a stamp and did a bunch of them. That just adds a little bit of something, something. So there's your card for today. Thank you for watching. If you did like it, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe. I'm so thankful for everybody that subscribes. I don't send out junk mail or anything like that, so there's no harm in subscribing. And leave me a comment. So for now, I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next week, and bye for now.